There's a class of antibiotics that's destroying people's lives, and yet doctors keep prescribing it. And I'm not talking about how the overprescription of antibiotics is causing superbugs. We already know about that. I'm talking about a specific type of antibiotic that's effects have caused thousands of people to rupture their tendons, become unable to walk, go blind, deaf, and experience brain damage and psychosis, all resulting in becoming permanently disabled and in constant pain for the rest of their lives. There's a black box warning which tells doctors they shouldn't prescribe it unless it's a last resort, if nothing else has worked, because there are other safer antibiotics that are supposed to be used as the first treatment choice. Yet overworked doctors are unaware of the black box warning and keep prescribing it anyway. So unfortunately, it's up to us to educate ourselves and prevent these horrendous side effects from happening, because studies show there's a 1 in 5 chance you'll be prescribed it for a minor infection. They're called fluoroquinolones, and there's a few different ones, but they all end in floxacin. So anytime you or a loved one is prescribed an antibiotic, make sure it doesn't end in floxacin. There's a full list of them on the screen and in the description, but the most common is Cipro, which is the brand name for Ciprofloxacin, but there's also Levaquin for Levofloxacin and Avelox for Moxifloxacin. The scary thing is, most drug side effects go away when you stop taking the drug, but this side effect is permanent. The medical term for this is fluoroquinolone toxicity, but it's colloquially known as being floxed, based off the antibiotics all ending in floxacin. So what's happening? Why are people becoming floxed? Well, fluoroquinolone antibiotics work differently than most other antibiotics. Others work by targeting the bacteria's cell wall or protein synthesis, but fluoroquinolones work by targeting the bacteria's mitochondrial DNA and preventing it from being able to replicate. Since the DNA can't replicate, it ends up killing the bacteria. And the hypothesis for why so many people end up having such serious side effects is it's not only damaging the bacteria's DNA, but our DNA as well, because studies show that people with fluoroquinolone toxicity have mutated DNA and mitochondrial damage. And as we all know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So when that becomes damaged in every cell, it wreaks havoc on your entire body. One example of someone who was floxed is 22-year-old Mateo Rojas, who was prescribed Cipro for a UTI. He's now disabled and needs an electric wheelchair to get around and is going blind. His symptoms began as severe tendinitis, which required him to wear braces over his entire arms and legs. And 1 month after taking the antibiotic, he was driving home, and when he just turned the steering wheel, experienced what felt like a gunshot in his wrist because his tendon ruptured, and so he had to pull over and call 911 to take him to the hospital. But this wasn't his only hospitalization, as Cipro also deteriorates your brain. He later suffered a psychotic episode, which is also common after being floxed, where he thought the government was reading his mind and figured they couldn't read it if he stuck his head in the oven and melted his brain. Luckily, his roommate stopped him and took him to the hospital before he could hurt himself. He also suffered severe memory loss for a month and what he called word salad, which made it difficult for people to understand what he was saying. This all happened in 2018, and to this day he is still disabled, as the tendon damage and muscle atrophy is permanent. He has to use a shower chair to wash himself and needs special hooks to help dress himself, and he has a completely reduced quality of life. Another example is Talia Smith, who was prescribed Cipro for a UTI.
Prior to me getting sick, I was very healthy. I worked out 7 days a week. I had a full-time job. And then in April 2021, I got a UTI. My doctor prescribed me Cipro. I specifically asked, is there anything I need to know before taking this antibiotic? The doctor's response was that no, there was nothing I needed to be aware. I took the antibiotic, 3 pills in, I couldn't walk. I started having pains all over my body. My vision actually changed in this time. I had problems swallowing. I just knew something was really wrong. And so I went to the emergency room. I said, I took an antibiotic. I don't think that has anything to do with it, but I cannot walk. And the doctor looked at me and said, were you taking Cipro? So I panicked. And I said, yes, I'm taking Cipro. And he said, have you ever heard of a black box warning before? And I said, no, what is that? And that's the moment I found out what a black box warning was. The first black box warning came out in 2008, then another one in 2011, and then again in 13. In 16, I took a Cipro all the way in 2021, and yet no one seemed to understand this, even though the FDA had been issuing these warnings consistently for many years. I started deteriorating pretty rapidly. So I was noticing a new symptom. Tremors, the nerve pain was ridiculous, just constant nerve pain. My whole body started stiffening up to the point where I could barely even sit down. Within 5 months, I was on hospice. That's how fast this progressed. My own doctor said that they were unaware of how to treat this, so all that they could do was treat my symptoms. When I first went in for my UTI, I didn't think anything of it. I was just going to take some antibiotics and be on my way and go back to my normal life. I had no idea that taking an antibiotic was going to be like a bomb going off in my body. And as for my life now, my life is flipped upside down. I can't even take care of myself. I'm on palliative care. I need care 24/7. Make sure you actually need an antibiotic before taking one. Antibiotics in America are so overprescribed, and we're very used to taking them. If a doctor tells you a medication is safe, double check, triple check, just to be sure. I am seen. Are you?
And they're not the only ones who have experienced these horrific side effects. Thousands of people have been floxed, and you can read plenty of their stories online as they all but scream from the top of their lungs that this illegal prescribing of fluoroquinolones needs to stop, and as they plead that more research needs to be done on finding a cure. It's unfortunately too common that doctors prescribe Cipro when they shouldn't. A 2018 study showed that in America, 20% of all fluoroquinolone prescriptions were prescribed for conditions outside of protocol. 40% of the time that someone has a UTI, they're prescribed a fluoroquinolone. That means 6.3 million fluoroquinolone prescriptions are written a year for UTIs. 6.3 million! When there are other safer antibiotics that, according to protocol, should be used first. A black box warning is the last step before a drug is taken off the market completely, and it advises that they should only be used as a last resort when other alternatives won't do. Doctors are supposed to weigh the risk of prescribing the drug versus not, using the black box warning as guidance. Yet doctors often overlook these warnings because they're not up to date with the latest studies or just aren't aware of how severe the side effects are, and prescribe them anyway. A 2005 study showed that up to 49% of doctors act out of compliance with black box warnings. And when a drug contains a black box warning, they're legally required to tell you about the side effects. Yet millions of people are prescribed fluoroquinolones without ever being told about the side effects from their doctor. The vast majority of doctors are completely ignorant about the horrific and long-lasting side effects of fluoroquinolones and definitely don't know how to help their patients once they've been floxed. My own brother was prescribed Cipro when he had a stomach bug that resulted in lasting IBS. He started taking probiotics but kept getting worse, so he went to the doctor and they prescribed him an antibiotic, which in the long run usually makes IBS worse, so already a dumb idea. I knew about fluoroquinolone toxicity, so I asked him what he was prescribed, and lo and behold, it was Cipro. I immediately told him that he couldn't take it and instead should just stop taking such high doses of probiotics because too much of a good thing can be bad. And guess what? He got better. His doctor wanted to flox him when I simply told him to just stop taking probiotics and potentially saved his life. And recently, I saw that one of my favorite YouTubers, Shelby Church, was prescribed Levaquin for a sinus infection, but she Googled the antibiotic and stopped taking it after she learned about the horrible side effects.
I did some research on this antibiotic and I was like, I don't think I want to take this. It was a fluoroquinolone. I found that a lot of people who have taken this antibiotic have ended up with some pretty bad side effects. Like, it's got a black box warning. I was just like, I don't really think I want to risk it for a sinus infection. Like, if it was life-threatening, I would definitely take it. But I was like, why are they giving me, I don't know, it was called Levaquin, the antibiotic. I was like, why are there like thousands of people who have had this side effect? What the heck? It even had a name. It was called getting floxed.
And neither of them were told about the black box warning. They were both lucky that they stopped taking it, but not everyone is. For those who do take it, the most common toxicity side effect is tendon damage, which occurs in about 2% of cases. There's a 1 in 55 chance if you take Cipro, you'll experience some kind of tendon damage. Those are crazy high odds. But fluoroquinolone toxicity attacks more than just your tendons. It affects the DNA in every single cell of your body. It ends up poisoning your muscles, bones, fascia, nerves, collagen, cartilage, everything. This happens because fluoroquinolones cause epigenetic changes to our DNA, which results in the stopping of the production of many enzymes that keep us together, like proline, which is a building block for our tendons, and collagen, which is the protein that holds us together, essentially. Collagen isn't just found in youthful skin. It provides structure for almost everything in our body, including our eyes, which, speaking of, people who take this antibiotic are 5 times more likely to experience retinal detachment, which is why so many patients who are floxed go blind. Your brain is another organ that experiences side effects, as it can cause psychosis and severe memory problems. And even your nervous system is affected too, which can cause burning, numbness, and weakness all over your body. It's also important to note that the effect of taking this antibiotic is cumulative. This isn't an allergic reaction type side effect where only some people are affected. Fluoroquinolones poison the body, and depending on your own body's resilience, it's a matter of quantity when the DNA becomes damaged severe enough that it causes systemic effects. Many people are prescribed Cipro once and are totally fine, and then later down the line are prescribed it again for something else, and then are floxed and become disabled. It also sometimes takes a couple weeks after finishing the antibiotic before the side effects occur. It seems that different people have different thresholds, and once enough builds up in your system and damages enough of your DNA, you'll experience what many floxies describe as a bomb went off in my body type effect. And for some people, this happens after only 1 pill. Why it affects some people sooner than others is uncertain, but the takeaway is it's not worth the risk. As the black box states, fluoroquinolones should only be prescribed as a last resort if you're allergic to all other antibiotics or if they haven't worked, and only for conditions that are serious or life-threatening, like anthrax or the bubonic plague, which yes, does still exist. Not for things like sinus infections or UTIs, which is debatable if you should even be prescribed antibiotics for them in the first place, when our immune system is naturally capable of handling it on its own given enough time to do so, as it's commonly talked about that all antibiotics are overprescribed in the first place, but that's a topic for another time. But anytime you or a loved one is prescribed an antibiotic, please check the label and make sure it doesn't end in Floxacin or go by the common brand names Cipro, Levaquin, or Avelox. If it is, don't take it, and ask your doctor for a non-fluoroquinolone antibiotic if possible, and then educate them about the side effects in the black box warning. And from the bottom of my heart, I ask that you either share this video with the people that you love or just tell them what you learned, because after reading the stories of multiple floxies, this topic has really deeply touched my heart, and I pray that this video will help save at least one person's life and prevent people from unnecessarily becoming disabled. So with that, I thank you for watching and for spreading the word, and I'm sending you so much love and health. Bye.